Okay. It's been a hot minute since I last talked about movies on this channel. Let's do this. If you're in the mood to check out something new, cool, weird, interesting, different, something you might not already be familiar with, then I have some recommendations for you. Here are some niche or obscure movies that you should check out. Alright, so let's kick off this video with what's probably one of the weirdest, most disturbing movies on this list, eXistenZ. eXistenZ, released in 1999, is a body horror sci-fi thriller directed and written by David Cronenberg, starring Jude Law and Jennifer Jason Leigh. It also features Ian Holm and Willem Dafoe. In this movie, a world-famous virtual reality game designer named Allegra Geller, played by Leia, is on the run with Ted Pikel, played by Lore, because assassins opposed to the existence of virtual reality are after them. The only copy of Allegra's latest game is damaged during an attack, and so Allegra and Ted must play through this game together in order to test its integrity. That's the extent of what I'm willing to divulge about this film's premise, as eXistenZ is a film best experienced when you know as little as possible about what you're getting yourself into. eXistenZ has a lot of similarities to other films such as Inception and The Matrix, thrusting you into a world that incites a lot of paranoia within you because you have no idea what's real and what's not until the very end. And even when you reach the end of the movie, those questions are still left up to speculation. It's a film that also features some rather inventive use of body horror that goes a long way to weird you the hell out. My favorite example of this is how some of the characters in the movie are able to assemble guns using nothing but bones and their own teeth, with one character doing this in order to smuggle their gun past security and metal detectors. The game consoles that the characters use to connect to the virtual reality are also quite weird, being these small pods made of flesh that the players connect to via umbilical cord. It's very freaky, but also kind of cool due to how utterly original of an idea it is for a fictional gaming console. eXistenZ is a movie that's best watched knowing as little as possible before going into it, so I'm not going to explore this film much further in this video to avoid spoiling it. All I'm gonna say is that if you check out this movie, you're in for a wild, weird, and unpredictable ride. Before we continue with the video, I'd just like to say that my debut science fiction novel is out now, link in the description below. Now, on with the rest of the video. Need a palate cleanser from how gross and disturbing eXistenZ was? Well, how about something that's disturbing in a completely different way? Let's talk about the darkly comedic, absurd parody of reality television that is Series 7, The Contenders. If you were to chuck The Hunger Games, The Truman Show, and Black Mirror into a blender, you'd probably get something like this.
It's kill or be killed.
I'm going to win.
Meet the Contenders. Dawn, Jeff, Connie, Lindsay, Tony, Franklin.
Just watch your back, because Tony's coming.
One will win.
I'm a survivor.
The rest will die.
What happened?
Series 7.
Released in 2001, Series 7 is a satirical black comedy written and directed by Daniel Minahan, starring Brooke Smith, and fun fact, also features future Lego Batman Will Arnett. The premise of Series 7 is that it's essentially a marathon of a fake reality TV show called The Contenders, in an alternate future where the United States became a dictatorship. In this show, 6 normal, everyday people are randomly chosen by their social security number via lottery, given a handgun, and are forced to hunt and kill each other for the cameras within the confines of a random city or town. Whoever the last one is left alive wins the game. Among these 6 people is the winner of the previous season, and if you win 3 seasons of this game in a row, you get to go free. Our protagonist is Dawn Lagarto, played by Brooke Smith, a heavily pregnant woman who is the current and longest reigning champion who has won 2 tours of the show so far, and just needs 1 more win so that both her and her baby can be set free. Besides her, the other contenders in this show are 57-year-old nurse Connie Trabucco, Dawn's ex-boyfriend Jeffrey Norman, unemployed dad Anthony Riley, 70-year-old retiree Franklin James, and 18-year-old student Lindsay Burns. Now, just hearing about the premise on its own in isolation, this film might sound incredibly horrific, but believe it or not, Series 7 is probably the funniest, most absurd and over-the-top movie I've seen all year. Also incredibly messed up, but that's par for the course when it comes to black comedy, I guess. The humor in Series 7 comes from just how comically dark the entire situation is. So messed up to the point where you can't even take it seriously, especially because it's presented to you in the format of a dramatized reality TV show. You've got this woman who is literally John Wick, but also pregnant, an elderly nurse who doesn't blink twice when it comes to killing people with lethal injections despite being deeply religious, a crazy hormonal teenage girl who absolutely does not belong in the situation, and more. The world that these characters inhabit is so warped and ridiculous. There's so many jokes in this movie that are so messed up, but you can't stop yourself from laughing at them anyway. There's honestly not much I can say about this movie without spoiling too many of the surprises and the jokes, which is why it might sound kinda like I'm beating around the bush or repeating myself. All I can say is that when I first saw this movie, it was with a relatively large group of people, and I had a blast with it. So, if black comedy and some really screwed up humor is your cup of tea, then I'd recommend that you check out Series 7.
I'm Garth Marenghi, author, dreamweaver, visionary, plus actor. You are about to enter the world of my imagination. You are entering my dark place.
Now, this one is an outlier compared to everything else that's on this list because it's not a movie, but in fact a mini-series. But it's one that I really wanted to talk about in this video because I've become really obsessed over it in recent years, and I think more people need to know about it. Created by Matthew Holness and Richard Ayoade, Garth Marenghi's Darkplace is a 2004 high-concept British comedy series that stars the both of them, as well as Matt Berry and Alice Lowe. The premise is that this is a mockumentary about a lost 1980s television series called Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, created as a vanity project by hack horror writer Garth Marenghi, played by Matthew Holness. The series was never aired on TV because of how bad it was, but fast forward to the early 2000s, and now the television network is airing the series for the first time. The series showcases each episode of the lost fictional Darkplace show with mockumentary-style interviews that take place in the present day interwoven throughout the runtime, where the fictional actors involved in the making of the series discuss the making of each episode. Garth Marenghi's Darkplace is probably one of the funniest shows I have ever seen, because the premise is based around a really awful television series. The entire show is made bad on purpose.
Listen up, ladies, we've got a situation. A little lass has just cracked her nut, and if she croaks... My ass is grass.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Tell me about it. Have you met the temp?
Listen, sweetheart, I've not got time to shoot the shit. So why don't you and your new boyfriend carry some chicken out to my office when it comes, if it ever comes.
Hey!
Get lost.
Cool it, Sanchez, or you'll get a knuckle supper. Look, Douglas, you're an excellent doctor, but you're also a live wire maverick, who, when he's not bucking the system, is biting the hand that feeds, which in your case, is this hand. Now, I'm not about to tell the immediate family of the deceased that we're going to have to burn what remains of his body in order to close the portals to another dimension. I just won't do it.
Every single mistake you could possibly make while filmmaking is done on purpose in Darkplace. The acting is atrocious, the writing is so bad it's good, the camera work is so bad that sometimes the actors aren't even in frame correctly. It's incredibly obvious whenever a line has been dubbed or not.
Well, let's get down to it right away. I'm feeling really horny.
What's that?
Oh, that's just mist or fog. You'll forget all about it once you're into it.
Hell, Matt Berry plays a character where almost all of his lines are ADR'd to the point where his voice doesn't even match the movements of his mouth.
When I first joined this hospital, I was strictly solo. You were the first real buddy I ever had. But if you and he wish to be best buddies again, I won't stand in your way.
You could probably use Darkplace as an example of how not to make a television series. Not to mention, the comedy in the series is so batshit insane, incredibly weird, and unlike anything you've ever seen before. With the third episode in particular probably being the one where the show is taken to its absolute extreme, but I won't spoil it here. Whenever I've shown this series to somebody, I've always warned them that the third episode is the most screwed up, but not even that is enough to prepare them for how crazy it is. The mockumentary-style interviews also add another layer of comedy to the series, with Garth Marenghi and his producer Dina Lerner holding Darkplace in absolute reverence, believing it to be one of the greatest things ever to be put on film, and that if it had aired during the 80s, it would have changed the world, when it's very obvious that they're just pretentious and have delusions of grandeur.
I got a script, read it, scared me senseless, calmed amplitude, and I said to Garth, I looked straight into his face, I've never been afraid of holding a man's gaze, it's natural. I said, this is going to be the most significant televisual event since Quantum Leap. And I do not say that lightly.
They also discuss things that happened behind the scenes while making the series, and the jokes there are often just as funny as the ones in the fake show itself.
I do not believe that any form of life, be it human, animal or plant, should be hurt in the making of a television programme. So I personally feel very bad about the cat we killed.
I had a cat once. I dropped a safer on it. It was a write-off, so I stood on its head.
This show also features a few other recognizable faces. The creator of the IT Crowd, Graham Linham, plays one of the security guards, and Julian Barrett and Noel Fielding from The Mighty Boosh also have small roles in the series. Darkplace is overall a very fresh and innovative comedy, especially for its time. I'd highly recommend that anybody checks it out, or at the very least, watch the first couple of episodes to see if it's something they're on board with. Especially because each episode is only 20 minutes long, and only has one season, so you don't have to commit yourself to a long and lengthy series spanning years. Darkplace is a series that I find myself constantly rewatching at least once a year, especially because I have a very chaotic sense of humor, so the show's comedy really resonates with me on that level.
Not without incident. I'm coming.
What What do you get when you combine George Orwell's 1984, The Matrix, and Fahrenheit 451? Well, you get Equilibrium, one of the most violently 2000s movies you will ever see. Starring Christian Bale, Taye Diggs, Emily Watson, and featuring Sean Bean, who, just in case you're wondering, yes, dies within the first few minutes of the movie. Equilibrium is a 2002 dystopian sci-fi action thriller set in the aftermath of World War III. Following this event, all emotions have been outlawed to prevent another war from occurring, with people taking drugs daily that suppress their feelings. Those who do not take this drug, known as sense offenders, are hunted down by elite soldiers known as grammaton clerics. John Preston, played by Christian Bale, is one such cleric who, due to circumstances outside of his control, is unable to take his daily dose of the drug and begins experiencing emotions for the first time. We follow him as he learns how to navigate his emotions for the first time and eventually joins a resistance group of sense offenders working as a double agent for them to help take down the totalitarian government that runs the world. Now, I gotta admit, this might not be the greatest movie ever made, but it's one that is incredibly nostalgic for me. I saw this for the first time when I was around 11, maybe 12, can't entirely remember, and around that age I was pretty obsessed with The Matrix. Equilibrium had a lot of similarities to The Matrix, so I immediately bought into this film for its really interesting and unique action set pieces, based around a fictional martial art called gun kata, which is basically just kung fu with guns. It's still incredibly cool to this day, even if it's very obviously unrealistic. But it wasn't just the action that won me over back then. It was also the core premise of this film, a world where emotions are outlawed, and a protagonist who is experiencing emotion for the first time, going through a journey of self-discovery. It's definitely one that really intrigued me back when my younger self first saw this film. Anyway, if you want to watch a movie with an interesting dystopian premise and tons of ridiculous, over-the-top 2000s level action and edginess, then I would highly recommend watching Equilibrium. If you know what you're getting into and are willing to turn off your brain to enjoy this film's absurd chaos, then I have no doubt that you'll have a great time.
Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? Just like me, they long to be close to you.
And finally, we've reached the last movie on this list, MirrorMask. Which, fun fact, the first ever video I produced for this channel, besides my acting show reel, was a retrospective about MirrorMask. But please don't watch that video because the quality pales in comparison to what I'm able to produce nowadays. Directed by Dave McKean, MirrorMask is a 2005 dark fantasy film produced by the Jim Henson Company about a 15-year-old girl who finds herself in a mysterious fantasy world full of masked people and monsters while her mother, who collapsed and was taken to hospital, undergoes an operation. As it turns out, this world she has entered into was created through her own drawings that she hung up on the walls of her room. She meets a juggler called Valentine and together, they embark on a quest to find the fabled MirrorMask in order to save his fantasy world from being consumed by shadows, all the while meeting characters who mirror that of people she knows in the real world, similarly to The Wizard of Oz. I watched MirrorMask for the first time when I was a kid, and it's one that has stuck with me throughout most of my life because of how visually unique, atmospheric, and immersive it is. Hell, for a while I wasn't even sure if this was a real movie or just some childhood fever dream until I later rediscovered the movie as an adult. The soundtrack is also another highlight of this movie, composed by Ian Bellamy, whose name took me 4 takes to say correctly for some reason. Anyway, the music is such a perfect match for MirrorMask's visual identity and goes a long way to further immerse you into its strange, dark, and surreal world. It's also worth noting that MirrorMask is considered to be the spiritual successor to The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. Sony and the Jim Henson Company were primarily interested in making a film that would sell as well in video release as those 2 movies, originally planning to create a prequel to The Dark Crystal or sequels to Labyrinth, before eventually deciding to create something similar or in the spirit of those films, which is how we ended up with MirrorMask. So yeah, I'd say that the visuals, the soundtrack, and the similarities to Labyrinth and Dark Crystal are definitely the reasons why you should check out MirrorMask. If I were to nitpick or criticize, I'd say that this movie's story is very conventional by the numbers and pretty much what you would expect out of a movie like this. However, even if the story is one that you've probably seen before, everything else about this movie is not, because it has such a unique art style and atmosphere. I've never seen anything quite like it before or since. Another caveat to this film worth mentioning, and one that I've avoided discussing up until now, is that the screenplay was written by Neil Gaiman, who in recent memory has become a very controversial figure. At the time of my original video on MirrorMask, Gaiman had not yet been exposed, which is why that video didn't cover the controversy surrounding him. But now that I'm covering this movie again in the aftermath of the things that were revealed about him, I think it's something I should probably mention. Whether or not you're comfortable with experiencing the story depends on how well you can separate the art from the artist. But despite the fact that he wrote this movie, that absolutely does not invalidate the exceptional work that everybody else involved poured into this film's production. So, if anything, I implore you to check this movie out anyway, just to admire the work put into it by the actors, the cinematographers, the artist, composer, and so on and so on. While personally, I don't have any respect for Neil Gaiman because of the terrible things he's done, this movie is one that I still can't help but feel nostalgic for, and I greatly admire the work that was put into it by everyone else involved. Okay, there you have it. 4 movies and 1 miniseries that are obscure, niche, and not everybody knows about them, that I'd recommend you check out if you want to watch something different. So, in summary, looking for a weird body horror thriller with an Inception style of plot? Check out eXistenZ. Or what about a black comedy that satires reality television? Series 7 Contenders is probably up your alley. A mockumentary parodying a bad 80s horror show? I implore you to check out Darkplace. Over-the-top 2000 style action? Equilibrium. And finally, if you want a dark fantasy with a unique visual identity and similar vibes to Labyrinth or The Dark Crystal, check out MirrorMask. Thank you for checking out my list. If there's any other niche or obscure movies and shows you'd recommend, feel free to mention them in the comments below. If you're interested in seeing more from me, I cover a lot of movies, shows, and video games I'm interested in or feel nostalgic for on this channel, so if that sounds like content you'd be interested in, feel free to subscribe. Social media links are also in the pinned comment and description below. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, where I post regular updates about all of my creative projects, such as YouTube content, artwork, photography, and updates on my writing work. Oh, and speaking of which, I'm also an author, so if you're interested in reading something new, whether that may be science fiction, fantasy, etc., then feel free to check out my work through the links below. With all that being said, thank you so much for checking out my video, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one.